time, we'll invite our children down for jam. It's an opportunity. Oh, I like your hat. Opportunity for them to go back, and they'll have a class taught to them while Cliff is delivering his lesson in here. We'll sing a song together, and then we'll dismiss our children. Wise man built his house upon the rock. The wise man built his house upon the rock. The wise man built his house upon the rock, and the rains came tumbling down. The rains came down and the floods came up. The rains came down and the floods came up. The rains came down and the floods came up. And the wise man's house stood firm. Foolish man built his house upon the sand. The foolish man built his house upon the sand. The foolish man built his house upon the sand. And the rains came tumbling down. The rains came down and the floods came up. The rains came down and the floods came up. The rains came down and the floods came up. And the foolish man's house went smash. So build your house on the Lord Jesus Christ. So build your house on the Lord Jesus Christ. So build your house on the Lord Jesus Christ, and the blessings will come down. The blessings come down as the prayers go up. The blessings come down as the prayers go up. The blessings come down as the prayers go up. So build your house on the Lord Jesus Christ. Now you go. I really hope that y'all are not in as big a hurry to leave as they were. That's precious, isn't it? So excited to go back there. It's a good ministry that's being provided, and all of those who are involved in that, you ladies and what have you, are doing a great job of providing for them a ministry that they love. Is that evidence that they love it? Amen? Amen. Satan is now and has always relentlessly attacked God's people. And so I ask you this morning, how's your battle going? You and I need to support one another to victory in that battle. We can count on God being there if we seek Him out and invite Him into the battle. We need to lift each other's arms up as we face the struggles against Satan. Satan used the nation of the Amalekites to fight against God's people. In Exodus chapter 17 and verse 8, near Rephaim, Moses, as the armies were gathered, Moses said to Joshua, "Tomorrow, when we fight against Amalek, I will stand on top of the hill with my staff, the staff of God, in my hand." And so Joshua did as Moses said, and he fought with Amalek, while Moses and Aaron and Hur went up on a hill over the battle. In verses 11 and 12, it says that whenever Moses held his hand in the air, Israel prevailed. And whenever he lowered his hands, Amalek prevailed. Moses' hands grew weary, and so they took a stone and they put it under him, and he sat upon it. And Aaron and Hur then stood on either side of him and held Moses' arms up so the staff of God was in the air. His hands were steady until the going down of the sun, and by the end of day, verse 13 says, Joshua and the army of God had overcome Amalek and his people with the sword. We need to support each other in the war that we have against Satan. When he brings forces against us, we need to be supportive of one another. And we need to count on God to make it happen. When this story ends, if in fact that rod in the air was the reason Israel won, it was God's
mighty power that did it. That's the evidence of it. That God was with them. So again, I ask you, how's your battle with Satan going? It starts in the beginning. Revelation chapter 12 and verse 7, a war arose in heaven, and Michael and his angels were fighting against the dragon, that is Satan. And the dragon and his angels fought back, but he was defeated, and there was no longer a place found for him in heaven. Satan was cast down. The book of Revelation also tells the end of that battle, predicting it in Revelation 20 and verse 8, that Satan will gather his forces for battle, and their number will be like the sands of the sea, and they will march up over the broad plain of the earth and surround the camp of the saints. But fire will come down out of heaven, and it'll consume them, and the devil who had deceived them will be thrown into the lake of fire to be tormented day and night forever. He will lose, brethren. That is a fact. My question this morning is, will he lose in regard to you specifically? God has the power to conquer him, and indeed will conquer him. But how's your part in the battle going? Number one, in Revelation 12 and verse 7, as the text said, Satan can be defeated. There was no longer a place found for him in heaven. Neither should there be place found for him in your life and in mine as we battle against him. Satan can be thrown down. That's what the text we just read said. He can be thrown down by inviting God's divine power to destroy the strongholds that he has in our lives, and by the supporting of our brethren. The text where it says that Joshua and Hur supported Moses' arms, helped him lift his arms so that the victory could be found, is somewhat of an analogy of what you and I can do for each other in our battle with Satan, as we lift up each other's arms, supporting one another. It is the purpose of the invitation song each Sunday. I invite you to come forward as we stand and sing. And if in fact you're a Christian and your struggle with Satan has been failing and you're not doing well with it, and you feel weak and weary as Moses did in his battle that day, that we together can lift each other's arms up, that you can come forward and we'll be supportive of you, and we'll turn to God and ask him to give you the victory. What strongholds does Satan have in your life? Could it be with sin and temptation? Could it be worldliness and addictions that you're having a failing time struggling with? Do you have grief that has you overwhelmed? Is Satan crushing you with the struggles of sorrow and grief? Is there financial struggles? Or is there struggles over even faith in your life? Are you struggling with your faith right now? Then come forward. And know two things will happen. You can invite God to take control and to use his mighty power to turn the battle, break the stronghold of Satan. And you can invite your brethren to lift up your arms, as Joshua and Hur did that day in the battle of Exodus 17. 2 Corinthians chapter 10 and verse 3 says, we are waging a war, but not with each other. Interestingly enough, when people have marital problems, sometimes they think the war was with each other. It's not. If your marriage is in trouble, my friend, it is Satan that you're battling. It is Satan that would destroy you and your family and your marriage. If you have family struggles with your children or your extended family, brothers, sisters, or whatever, it's Satan that is the enemy, not them. We're at war. 2 Corinthians 10 says, but Satan cannot win. For our weapons are not fleshly weapons. Our warfare, not physical, but rather a spiritual warfare with Satan. And we have divine power, that text says. We have divine power to destroy strongholds, to destroy arguments and lofty opinions raised against the knowledge of God, and to take every thought captive to obey Christ. You have that. So I ask you again, how is your battle with Satan going? Revelation 12 again says that Satan can be defeated, and there will be no longer any place for him in your life. Satan can be thrown down if you invite God's divine power to break those strongholds, and if you invite your brethren to lift up your arms to victory. He has always attacked God's people. You remember the days of Egypt. Once they were freed from bondage, Israel approached the Red Sea, and Egypt was approaching. And Satan was pressing them toward it. Again, the battle was not with Egypt. The battle was with Satan. And God was going to be the victor in this. In Exodus 14, verse 13, Moses said to the people as they stood at the Red Sea, "Fear not, stand firm. Behold the salvation of the Lord, which he will work for you today. For the Egyptians who you see today, you will never see again, for the Lord will fight for you." And it says he raised his staff. There's that staff again. God's staff in the air, and the waters were parted. How is your battle with Satan going? He can be defeated. His strongholds can be broken. And he has no place any longer in your life if you invite God's divine power into it and you invite your brethren to help you fight that battle. Again, in Isaiah 37, verse 35, the Assyrian army, led by Satan, attacked the people of God, surrounding the city of Jerusalem with 185,000 Assyrian soldiers. Satan's victory looked certain. Outnumbered, massively overwhelmed, Isaiah and Hezekiah prayed to God. They asked God for rescue, and God promised Satan will not win. Here's what he said through Isaiah: "This city will not fall. I will defend this city and save it." And the angel of the Lord struck down 185,000 in the camp of the Assyrian host. And when the people arose early in the morning, behold, the Assyrian army were all dead. God can give the victory. Invite him into that battle. Invite God's people into that battle. So I ask you again, how is your battle with Satan going? It didn't work so well with Simon Peter as the day approached that Jesus was going to be betrayed and crucified. Shortly before he was arrested, Simon Peter denied knowing, shortly before he was crucified, Simon Peter denied knowing Jesus. In Luke chapter 22 and verse 31, Jesus had predicted that, saying this: "Simon, Simon, behold, Satan is demanding to have you, that he might sift you like wheat. But I have prayed for you that your faith may not fail." There it is. Invite God into the victory. And then pray for one another, to lift one another up as Jesus lifted Peter up. So how can Christians invite God's power to destroy Satan and his strongholds? How can we do this? If you have sin and temptation in your life, worldliness and addictions with which you struggle and are failing, if you have grief in your life that has you overwhelmed and sorrows that you can no longer continue in, you have financial disasters, if your faith is struggling, don't let Satan win. Invite God into that battle and invite your brethren into that battle. We will support you. That is the whole point of an invitation, is to invite you to come up here, to invite God into the battle, and to invite your brethren to support you in it. You have marital struggles? Your marriage is in trouble? Invite God into the battle. And ask your brethren to help lift you up in that struggle. In Luke chapter 18, verse 13, Jesus told the story of two men who went to the temple to pray. One of them was a publican, meaning a tax collector. The other a Pharisee. It says that the publican stood afar off and beat his chest and said, "God, be merciful to me, a sinner." He begged God to step into the battle, that he had thus far failed and was defeated. But he asked God to forgive him, to be merciful, and to give him victory. And Jesus said, I tell you, this man went down to his house justified. For the one who humbles himself will be exalted. This man humbled himself. He humbled himself in two ways. First, to admit that he was a sinner, that he was broken, that Satan had overwhelmed him. And secondly, he begged God to rescue. He invited God to give him victory. How can Christians invite God's power? James chapter 5 says in verse 16 that the prayer of faith will save the one who is sick, and the Lord will raise him up. And if he's committed sins, he will be forgiven of them. Therefore, here's the point. Therefore, confess your faults one to another and pray for one another. You've confessed faults to God and to your brethren and sought God to be involved in the prayer, and you've invited your brethren into it as well by confessing those faults one to another. And then he says, and pray for one another that you may be healed. For the fervent, effectual prayers of a righteous man avails much. We need each other's support. We need to lift each other's arms up, even as it was in the days of Moses, as his arms became weary and he could no longer fight in the battle that Satan was waging. Joshua and Hur. Thank God for Joshua and Hur, who lifted up his arms. And with that, God gave them the victory. That's how Christians invite God's power into destroying Satan's stronghold. It is the reason why I offer an invitation each Sunday, is so that you can invite God into the battle with you as you struggle with whatever it is, and that you can invite your brethren to help you struggle in it as well. It's what we need to do. It's what God expects us to do. This is inviting God's divine power and God's people to lift your arms and destroy the strongholds of Satan. This is what we must do for each other. And if you need that, you come as we stand and sing.
I am resolved no longer to linger, charmed by the worldly line. Things that are higher, things that are nobler, these have allured my sign. I will hasten to him, hasten so glad and free.